Banter.
I'm Dr. Dangerfield.
And I'm Dr. Patience.
And we're back at you for season 2. And we're going to talk about really kind of going back to why we started this and some topics that really kind of we see as universal for women of color, the professional women of color, but also we just want to kind of stay focused and not get so scattered so that you'll know what you're getting from us. So we're going to talk a little bit today about
being a black woman in leadership, right?
Yeah.
In corporate America, in
leadership period.
In leadership period. I mean, wherever that may be, right? The lead barista at Starbucks, it doesn't matter, right?
Right.
I think that we got so much feedback. Anytime we kind of really focus in on this struggle, internal and or external struggle of specifically black women, right? I think a lot of women of color go through this. We talk, we have friends or we talk to people, and so we know this is universal, but we speak probably more passionately when we're talking because we are African American women, so we totally can empathize and understand and relate to that difficulty. And not only that, if you haven't watched our first season, go do that, but haven't watched the very first episode, you would know that we both have been in leadership roles, and not like multiple leadership roles before in our lives. And so we know that well, right?
Yes, we know that the struggle of really being able to show up fully in who you are as a black woman, and sometimes having to deal with that whole people perceive you as either being the angry black woman or that you are intimidating.
Yes.
And like I had a counselor have a conversation with me, and she couldn't understand. She was like, I was just doing what I do best, like showing up as a professional, wanting to achieve, to move up the ranks in the organization that she is working in. And someone says that she was intimidating. And she was like,
How am I?
I don't understand. I don't understand. I do my job. I do what I need to do. I see my clients. I, participate in conversations. She said, but someone said I was intimidating. And the question, and she was very sincere about it. She was like, do y'all think I'm intimidating? And it's like, no. You just, you're just showing up being who you are. You're a go-getter.
Right. And I'm not sure how that's intimidating, right? And, I think you have that thing of a woman, right? So women can relate to each other, right?
Yes.
Especially. So there are barriers that are similar, hurdles that are similar, just gender specific, right?
Yes.
As a woman. And so oftentimes I can find myself in a conversation with another woman, and there is the relatability of the barriers of, being seen in this role of leadership, being accepted, how you verbalize things, with the emails that like being critiqued maybe differently.
And making sure you say the right thing.
Yes.
Having to send your emails to somebody else, like, can you read this to make sure that this is not coming off the wrong way?
Right. So, we have this common bond as women, right? There's the Hillary Clintons of the world. You know what I mean? Who can pantsuits and seen a specific kind of way, right?
Yes.
But the part that kind of then veers us off, right, is the double-edged sword, if I can call it that, right? Of also being an African American woman, a black woman. And so sometimes I think that gets lost, right? Like, oh, I get it. Yeah. Ooh, no, I can't believe, right? But then when I start to talk about, well, there's a maze, right? That we are constantly trying to
navigate,
and we run into walls and corners and dead ends that you will never experience, right? That you will never have to struggle with, i.e. when we did our hair episode, right? How many women in the professional setting spoke to us about like the barrier of just wearing your hair natural.
Yes, in corporate America.
Yes.
Just being able to show up authentically in your Black is Beautiful stance.
Exactly. Or, you know, we got a lot of feedback from that, or talking about, you know, education even, right?
Yes.
Or because if I choose a HBCU, which you will never do because you don't really have that option, you know what I mean? Less than and more, you know, like, so there are these struggles that you really, you know, that then starts to separate us out, and the stress of that, right? Like
of having to navigate
constantly
all the time, thinking about, oh, should I do it this way, or if I do this, if I make this decision, what will be either the sacrifice that I'm going to have to make, or how is it going to benefit the larger community?
Exactly, I agree.
Or other women coming up behind us, most definitely.
And I think that speaks to that. I watched an episode of Mixed-ish and on ABC, and it was the mother. The mother is Black and the father's white, and so they have biracial children. I.e. Mixed-ish.
That's why it's called.
And so after I watched the episode, I immediately text Dr. Dangerfield because the mother was working really hard to not be perceived as the angry Black woman at work, right? And so what I love about the writing of that show, let me first say this.
They're very in tune.
Man, do they bring it together at the end? Like, you're like, ta-da, right?
Yes,
and so
they do.
even she was like, how could you portray me, one, as this angry Black woman, but then the part with the coffee cup, she came out screaming because nobody made coffee.
And her thing was like, so how hard is it that, like, if it's empty, someone set it up?
Yes, to make some more coffee. And she was... Yes, frustrated, right? But they saw this as this angry, typical, predictable angry Black woman, African American woman who's angry about some coffee. Seriously, right? But Tom, Bill, Dick, Harry, who can come in, right? And say the exact same thing
and not be perceived any type of way.
Right.
But then at the end, you want you want the benefit of the leader, the strong Black woman to stand up and voice a case when it is like, when it is...
You need a pit bull, right?
Yes.
That's what he said.
When you're like, I need you to go in and handle this.
Bring all your Blackness for that, though. Like, when you do that, bring all your Blackness, because that benefits me.
Right, but when it's not a benefit, or if it's a moment of you feeling intimidated, then that's when the thing is like, okay, can you dial it back? Can you turn it down a little bit? But as a woman, as a Black woman, it's like, when do I get to be myself? When do I get to show up in who I am authentically? Because a lot of times it's feeling like you're putting on masks or taking one off, putting on, who am I? That's why we have identity crisis. Sometimes it's like, oh my goodness. And especially in the concept, especially when you are sometimes like the only person of color at the table, when you are the only one in leadership, having to navigate that also is because you don't have, when you walk into the room, you don't have anybody to look like you, and then you're like, oh. And then sometimes you don't even have another female, or another woman that looks like you, and you're like, okay, so now who am I? I'm representing my own race, but then I'm also representing my gender. Like, I have to speak for, like, now it's like, am I speaking for all women? Am I speaking for all Black women? Am I speaking for all Black people? When you do this, so it's like that constant back and forth.
Yep, I agree. And I think, like, what does that speak to, like, about you as a person, right? When you have to constantly be changing who you are. And I had read this really good article. It's in Essence, I can't remember. But it gave these 5 points about women who were speaking about women in business or corporate America or in leadership. And they were like, one of the biggest struggles that they have is like, one, if nobody is there to have your back, then you can get weeded out, right? And so if I stand alone at the table, there is this fear that if I am my my authentic, genuine self, and there is no one else there who looks like me, then there is an opportunity for you to do things to get rid of me.
Yes.
Right? So if I push back, if I speak up,
yes.
does that put my whole family, right, at jeopardy? Because if I'm
gonna lose, because you're gonna lose your income.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so then another point that they made was like my mentor always talks about me dimming my light, right? And we're 1 minute it's like, oh,
shine bright, let the world know who you are.
Yes, and we watch Black Girls Rock, and you feel all inspired and great, and then you get to work and they're like, don't bring all that greatness up in here, right? Or it needs to look in a way that I feel comfortable.
So it can be packaged.
Right. And so then it's like, don't dim your light. Don't dim your light. Dim your light. You schizophrenic in here. So you standing on both sides like, exactly.
Okay, am I dimming? Am I turning it off? Am I dimming? Am I turning it on? Am I bright? Right. And so then that's when we as Black women start questioning who we are.
There you go. That's it.
Our identity. We like, who am I? And then you and I've had that, that whole thing of like, okay, am I going to show up as Dr. Lucretia Dangerfield? Am I going to show up as Lucretia? Who's in the room, and like, who do I show up? And then some people like, you need to show up as Dr. Lucretia Dangerfield. I'm like, but sometimes that comes with some weight.
Exactly.
Because it's like, people like, well, who is she to be showing up? Or what are the expectation of when I just want to be Lucretia? It's like, but I'm like, Dr. Lucretia Dangerfield, we're all the same. I'm the same person.
Baby, you gonna get me straight.
Right, and when you
straight every time.
No chick, you'd be like, oh, that's me.
And that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, a job I had, I remember very clearly, like when I made the shift, right? Because I don't really know how to come as a watered down version of me. Like, I'm just not really good at that.
Yeah.
Shout out to my mom. Like, she just really, I think she had enough, and she just really worked hard to ensure her girls just were always themselves, right? And so I clearly can remember where when I decided at my job, like, nah, I'm just gonna be okay. I'm just gonna say okay. I literally say to myself, like, because anytime I don't just say okay, I am getting pushback, I am getting, defamation of character, right? I am getting feeling bullied. Like, I just felt like there were all of these attacks on me. And while some people admired it, leadership, I feel like, did not. And so, right or wrong, right? So if you want me to come into your company and put on blackface, well, I'm not doing that either, right?
That's not me.
That's not me.
Yeah.
So I remember I was like, I made a very conscious effort. Like, I loved what I was doing. I loved the work, but I just did not feel like I fit in. And so I had decided clearly, like, I am going to just say, okay, like, even if I'm not down for it. I'm like, I remember clearly one day my boss came to me and was like, well, what's the plan for this? And I said, well, actually, what do you want to happen? Because whatever you want to happen, that's what I'll go do.
Because that's what's going to happen.
Because that's what's going to happen. You're coming to me like you want my suggestion, or you want to know how I'm going to handle this, but you haven't shown me that you trust my decision making, or that you feel comfortable with me, because when I'm me, or when I give you pushback, it's, I'm a lot.
And is it that you're giving pushback, or are you stating your opinion?
My opinion, exactly. And so the pushback is really like, let's have a discussion about this, and literally, don't be upset because I know fact. Like, I can, you're not dealing with like an amateur, like, boom, boom, boom. I've been at this for a while, right? And so I remember when I decided, like, I'm just going to say, okay. I'm just going to say, what do you want to, okay. What do you want me to do? Okay, fine, that's fine. I'll do that. And I swear maybe like 3 months later I quit. Because
that was the question. That was going to be my question. Now, how long did you stay?
I can't do it.
How long did you stay?
I mean, and if you can, and if that works for you, okay. It's not worth a title. It's not worth my peace. It's not worth losing sense of self for me to, go in here and be something that I'm not.
Right.
I remember making the decision to do it. And I look back now and I'm mad at myself. For that
Why
3
did
months.
Why did I do
Right. The 3 months that I decided to not be myself, I'm angry. Because I feel like, how dare you, Carol's daughter, allow someone to make you step out your square?
Yeah. And be who you are not.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, and so now you live with, so do you go home every night mad at yourself because you're not who you
for dimming your light?
Yes, or do you play the game and the role? And I know sometimes we have to, right? Like I said, kids gotta eat, you know, you gotta eat. Gotta play that car note.
Yeah.
Them things are very important. But you know, at what cost?
But then I think a lot of times that's when you start making the decision on what am I going to do different and how am I going to change? Because a lot of times that ends up being a person's time to create their own exit strategy. I remember I sat on the board of a Christian not-for-profit, and I was the only person of color. Probably, I think I was the first board president. And after that 1 year of being the board president, I said, you know what, y'all couldn't pay me to come back because they wanted my face and my credentials. But when I started asking questions, I had some pushback, or just even questioning like some things, and it was like, oh, I dare you. And it's like, so you should have told me you just wanted me to be the face of the board.
Can we put you on this brochure,
Right?
Because
Like,
we want to show.
right? If you had told me that, then if you had told me that, then I've been like, oh, okay, I won't even come to the board meeting.
Exactly.
Y'all was wasting my time with the board meeting.
Right.
I would have been like, oh, okay. You know, if I wanted to sell myself that way. But I'm like, oh, but I was laughing because I'm like, this is how church folk act. And I'm like, woo, this is hilarious. I said, because I had to sit down and have a conversation with the CEO, which before me taking the position, she was like, oh, Lucretia Dangerfield, this, and this. But then when I start questioning and having my own opinion about things, then I was like, she was like, I dare you. And I'm like, lady,
what did you want from me?
Right. What did you want?
Right. So then I have a question for you. Do you think it is, and then I don't know where I'm going to, like, where I feel about this, but do you think it's harder to work for a white man, a white woman, or a black man?
I'm trying to think, even from my own experience, you know what? For me, I think it has been, my challenge has been working for a white woman.
Me too.
That not that you know that these were bad people,
right?
But it was a challenge, because even working for white males, you kind of know where they are, and they don't really play games. They are straight shooters. They're gonna take you out. You're gonna kind of know they about to take you out, unless you know. But yeah, all right. If they don't like you, they're gonna kind of say some stuff out loud, either in their behavior. They're gonna say it, but. I remember my first job in leadership working for a white female, and she was interesting, very interesting. And
y'all know what interesting means, right? Okay. When she said interesting, y'all know.
It was, and I was in Alabama, which was another thing, which, you know, South.
No shade.
Right, no shade, but I was in Alabama, and it was very interesting working for her. But I don't think she didn't care. Hers might have been more a personality disorder because she didn't get along with anybody, really.
Right.
All the leadership. But then right after her, a white male came in, and that was like a great experience.
I hear you, because when I worked for a white male, first I feel like we were filling each other out, right? I think they like to know kind of where you're coming from too. You already have an idea about where you think they're coming from, but I think they're filling you out to see where you're coming from. But we ended up having like a dynamic working relationship,
Yeah.
right? And now let me be honest. I have worked for some amazing white women, so let me not. I don't want anybody to think like, see, one of my old bosses like for real, but like no, right? Like no, I have worked for who like took me under their wing and really, coached and mentored and trusted me and empowered me. So I don't want that to like get lost by any means. But if you want to know my hardest, from my experience, who has been hardest for me to work for in leadership has definitely been white women. And I don't know if, that could just be a fluke or me, but it's usually this inability to relate. It just really what it is. I think that, and maybe that is the expectation things. Like we're both women, okay, and then we realize, but we're completely different. You know, I don't know what it is. I also think that, okay, this is so opinionated. And y'all know before we say anything.
We always, we forgot to put that at the beginning. These are our opinions.
And let me say this, if you watched our Welcome Back episode, you will know we were talking about more intimate, right? Like we were a little more intimate and a little more vulnerable, right? So I think what I'm about to say is like me totally being vulnerable, putting myself out here. I feel like, side note, I feel like Beyonce, right? Which, she did all that like Destiny's Child type music,
and then she showed,
and then she went into formation. Like, this is me like going into formation. So I like opened it all up. You done got the people comfortable with you, and now you like, come on. But I also feel like there is some white guilt that kind of happens that brings about the discomfort a little more with white women who have been my personal opinion, supervisors versus white men who I don't feel like are all in that feeling space, right? They like, whatever, but I think there is some of this, am I judging them? How am I, am I looking down at them? Do I don't feel like they're adequate enough? And then also if I bring up race with them, right? Like then, or like, cause it could be like my supervisee under me, right?
Yes.
Who I could be coming to talk about race issues, but then they like immediately brings up like all of their stuff. And I'm like, one, this wasn't about you, right? I just need you to supervise me on how to handle this. I don't need you to start telling me your stories of your racial encounters, like.
But it's interesting. And the reason why I chuckle is like for us to be working in a profession where the conversations should be probably easier, because in some kind of way we were supposed to be taught about multiculturalism and how to look at people through the lens of intersectionality and all of those things. But it still shows up because I still laugh to this day about the one student that asked me why I was not going to teach on how white counselor, how you should counsel white people. And this was a white woman who said, like, how you didn't teach us how to counsel white people. And I was like, the book is mainly
like go look at every literature book, every counseling book.
That's what the generality of the book is about. I said the reason why the authors picked different other races and ethnicities. I hate saying that word. I don't know how, it always sticks with me. But but that's why they pick it out.
Exactly.
And so even in our profession, a lot of that even though, and we have a hard time discussing it, because even going to our big conferences, when you look around the room, it's hard sometimes, even the people that they bring up, when you talk about race issues or microaggressions or vulnerable populations, the room gets quiet because they sometimes don't want to hear it or it's uncomfortable.
Exactly, I agree. And I think like I was at a meeting actually a couple of nights ago and somebody brought up the word compassion, right? And that and this broadening of lenses, right? Like he very eloquently said, we need to, as white people need to broaden their lens and show compassion and concern for the hurts and the struggles and the barriers of other races, but also other races, right, have to be aware and show compassion and to hear. But also, like, I think there's that brings about vulnerability, right?
It does.
People don't like to be vulnerable.
It requires you to look within and then being willing to say, okay, maybe I didn't get that right, or maybe I do have some biases, and being okay with saying, I do have some biases in this area, or in some aspects, being honest to say, I am a racist in that area.
Exactly.
Not that you might not be a total racist, because it's a difference. Because as we know, on everything there's a continuum. You have it over here, you have it over here.
Right.
But I think we all have our moment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's like usually that lack of self-awareness, right? I believe in corporate or leadership, you know. And a lot of times, right, most people, not most, in our profession, I believe, again, opinion, people work their way up into these roles, right? So there's rarely a business course that's been taken.
No, I don't know if they work it up.
They get in that role. They trip into it.
Yeah, sometimes what happens is because everybody quit.
Exactly. You're next. Get over here and take this
longevity.
Exactly.
You've been here 2 months.
Right.
You're the team lead and then you're the supervisor.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I think whereas there is like this business piece, right, is missing. And even when you read leadership books, right, or read or go to a seminar or a class, you end up like, okay, every leadership book should have a section on multi-cult. Like you just have to have it.
We get it in our textbooks, but that is not taught in business.
It's not.
It's not.
And so then maybe we can stop the, uncomfortable moment of sitting there and having a discussion about race. And sometimes it's not even like, I am not trying to guilt you. No. I am not trying to shame you. I really need you to help me problem solve.
On how to navigate this.
Right. And like make sure everyone's needs are met, but it gets lost. And then when I'm frustrated or I try to continue these conversations with you, or when my staff is saying I'm feeling ostracized by the team, or when, we're hearing these things, or I feel like so-and-so looks at me differently based on, or, hey, I am tired of people coming up to me like, how do you get your hair like that? What are you wearing your hair today? Oh my goodness, can I touch it? Can I, my staff member is sick of that. How are you going to help me resolve this issue?
And how can we have a conversation where it doesn't make another person feel bad by voicing their opinion or their feelings or how it's like, no, I don't want someone to keep coming up to me, touching my hair, asking me that question, or treating me sometimes fragile because they don't know. Feel like they don't feel like they know what to say. Exactly. And it's like, but just treat me like it's easier said than done. Just treat me like a human.
Just welcome. I'm a human being, right? It's just, and I feel for Black women because I guess was that you and I reading that article about like more Black women are becoming entrepreneurs. I think they're getting out of
Yes, that's a lot. Like reading that, I think even in the article, in one of the articles I was reading, they talk about that is one of the reasons why.
It's like
they move into entrepreneurship.
I am tired of justifying being a Black woman. Right? I'm in a business, in a corporation, I am tired of having to justify who I am for everyone else to be comfortable or for me to fit in or to me to assimilate into what you feel comfortable with. And so, never mind, I'll go
do my own, and then I'll connect with other people that are more welcoming and where I can use my own creative talents and spaces. And a lot of times connecting with other people that look like you because they understand how it felt not to have a seat at the table.
Exactly.
So they're like, okay, we decided to bring our own chairs.
And I'm all for that.
Well, yeah.
It's vulnerable. I'm all for that. Right? Like, I think that it is necessary. Because I'm just like I said, like, I don't want to, I have 2 girls, you all know that, especially if you watched last season. And so I am constantly in my mind thinking of them, right? And I think we talked about that this morning, kind of like, this importance of the generation behind us, who are we modeling
how do we equip them?
So wear your kinky twist and, be who you are. And, okay, so hold on. See, here I go, backtracking. Be who you are, yes. Yes. but make sure who you are. Kidding, guys. Kidding. You all know you know what I'm about to say. Like, don't come up in there cutting all the way up. But it's something. Don't dim the smart. How smart you are. Don't dim asking the question. Don't do that to fit into somebody else's box, because you will look up and they'll live with regret.
Yes,
it's time for that. Not me.
No one.
Boo.
Because life's short.
Life is so short. So, I think before we end, I think the big thing is, so what do we think is what are solutions, right? What are solutions to help our viewers and listeners when they're in these positions of leadership and are struggling with being their authentic selves? What are some things that we can say to kind of encourage and inspire them? My first thing is always get a network.
Yes, you need a support outside of work and of individuals that are, like, number one, going where you want to go, but then also are in similar situations, because I think that is one of the reasons why we started Bay, to have that network of friends and individuals that are in a similar situation, being able to do that.
I agree.
Most definitely getting a mentor.
I was going to ask my second one. Get a mentor. Always someone who, there is value, and you can call someone, bounce things off of them.
To run something back.
Right. And who can call you, not somebody who's going to always agree with you, but who can call you on your stuff too, right? You need both.
That email is do not send it out. Because I have a friend, she would text me, and like either she would say, okay, this email, I'm like, okay, can you send it to me, please, before you hit send?
Because I know I probably need to read that.
Like, maybe you could say it this way and still get your point across.
I agree. I also say a really big thing is get some kind of leadership training. Like go to training seminars you can do so much online now.
And nowadays there's so many different, there are so many people doing like YouTube videos, individuals that are talking about leadership. The other thing, the one thing that I have found about leadership is self-awareness is key. You have to be self-aware. So that is really to know how you're showing up. So get to know who you are, so that when you show up in your authentic self, you know that's her.
Agreed.
And most definitely, we always talk about work it out in therapy.
That's the last one.
Get you a therapist, someone that you can trust and you can be vulnerable in front of, so that you can talk about some of the things that are happening, where that person can either say, well, might want to curb that a little bit, or is this showing up in multiple places, not only at work, or this is a way that you can frame it a little bit better, a coach or a counselor.
Because we always got to deal with our stuff too, right?
Oh yeah, because it keeps showing up.
It does, and so
as long as we're going to be us.
I agree. So therapy is, we're always going to put you in that direction, because that, like you said, self-awareness and insight goes a really long way.
It can help you.
It does.
It helps you grow as a leader, because sometimes you have to know, like, okay, let me step back for a minute, breathe through this, and then be able to come back and say it or do something different with people. That's still you.
Yeah, I agree. And I think one thing that I have learned that's really been helpful for me is to challenge yourself to have the difficult conversations.
Oh yes.
Right? And that's where your network and your mentor and your counselor come in, but
they can help
that ability to step out of my comfort zone and to have those difficult conversations, even as a leader, have been very helpful. Right?
Oh yeah.
Educating me, educating them. A lot of times there is misunderstanding, miscommunication happening, or ignorance, right? And so, it's true,
1,
right?
3, 4, 5.
Right, like, if you're touching people's hair, walking around the office touching people's hair, like, that's just ignorance, right? That's ignorance.
Right.
And let me educate you about that.
Yes.
So, I'm really pushing yourself to be willing to step out of your comfort zone and have those difficult conversations have been really helpful for me in my time as a leader. So, I think that always good to leave y'all with a little something
to think about.
Yes.
To do.
Exactly. And we really would love for you in the comment section, put down what you've done. How have you managed difficult situations as a leader, as a supervisor, a manager, a director, a CEO, a CFO? I mean, I can name so many different titles, but all the same issues. So please let us know how you managed and handled that. Or if you're not sure how to do it, you can always send us a little note, let us know.
And then
we might have an answer. Our community might have an answer for you. So we want you to be able to follow us.
Yes, please.
Social media is about to start blowing up, so you got to keep up with us.
You don't want to miss out.
Keep up with us. Keep up with us. So Instagram
at I am BrownGirl Banter.
Also on Instagram, if you want to follow Dr. Dangerfield,
I am Dr. Dangerfield.
If you want to follow me, I am Dr. Patience, and you can follow us on Facebook.
Professional Brown Girls.
Go back to season 1 if you want to know why it's not Brown Girl Banter.
And do us a favor. Share this with a friend.
Yes.
Your assignment is to share this with at least one friend and get them to subscribe.
You can tell she is an educator as well as a counselor. Your assignment, right?
It's in me.
It's in me. So, yes, please subscribe, follow, like, all the things.
All those things.
And be sure to keep up with us on social media. That's really important because we're going to be using that as a really large outlet for all things Brown Girl Banter.
And so that you can know a little bit more about us and the things that go on in between.
Come on, get a little bit of that. As always, keep bantering, and we are so glad that you shared with us today. Talk to you later. Bye, Brown Girl Banter.
Bye.